By nightfall, the same woman would be sitting inside number 14 Pineapple Close, wrapped in the owner's suit jacket, while 34 uninvited guests watched his wife lose the life she had spent years displaying. Before we begin, subscribe to African Heart Stories and turn on your notification bell. Tell us in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is there. Stay with this story, because what happened at that gate did not end with punishment. It forced one proud woman to learn what a human life is worth. At 2:15 on that Tuesday afternoon, Sade stepped out through the double mahogany doors of number 14. She was 32, dressed in a cream silk jumpsuit, with a slim gold watch at her wrist and sunglasses large enough to hide half her face. The jumpsuit had cost 450,000 naira. She had told 3 different people that price since morning. That evening, her husband's company, Adeyemi Global Logistics, was hosting senior directors and contract auditors from the Federal Maritime Transport Authority. The firm had just secured a 4.8 billion naira haulage and port support contract. Tunde had wanted 12 people around the dining table. Sade had invited 34, 2 society photographers and a lifestyle columnist. To her, the difference between a dinner and a triumph was an audience. She stood on the porch and checked the driveway. Sunday, the driver, had gone to collect the final flower delivery from Ikoyi. The caterers were polishing glasses under the side canopy. James, the gardener, had left a grey 20-litre bucket near the outdoor tap after scrubbing mildew from the perimeter wall with detergent and a small measure of bleach. Then Saad saw the woman by the gate. She was sitting on the concrete curb outside the pedestrian entrance, directly beneath the shade thrown by the high wall. Her green wrapper had faded almost yellow at the folds. One rubber slipper lay on its side beside a swollen foot. Her breathing came through parted lips, each breath measured as though she were counting it. Sade stopped. For several seconds, she simply stared. Then she went down the steps. "Stand up." The woman lifted her head. "I said, stand up from there. Who told you to sit in front of this house?" "My daughter, good afternoon." Woman's voice was dry and strained. "Please, do not be angry. I only need to rest for a moment. I am not your daughter." Saad stayed 3 paces away, one hand pressed over her nose, although there was no smell. "This is a private estate. You cannot park yourself at people's gates as if this place is a motor park." The woman reached into the black nylon bag on her lap. Her name was Grace Adeyemi. She was 62, a retired primary school teacher from a town outside Ijebu-Ode. Inside the bag were a small Bible, 2 blister packs of amlodipine, a folded hospital discharge note, and the remains of a cloth handbag that had been cut open with a blade. She took out 1 tablet and held it up. "My purse and phone were stolen at Oshodi this morning," Grace said. "I have reached the address I was looking for." My chest became tight on the road, so I sat down before pressing the bell. "Please, give me 1 cup of tap water. Let me take my medicine, then I will explain myself." Sade laughed once. It was not a pleasant sound. "So this is the new method," she said. "First, it is water. Tomorrow, somebody comes to inspect the gate. Next week, armed men know where the cameras are. Do you think people build a 600 million naira house so every roadside stranger can rest against the wall?" Near the guard post, Bode Ezekiel heard every word. He was 28 and had been on his feet since 6 that morning. He earned 75,000 naira a month from the estate security contractor, sent 25,000 to his widowed mother in Badagry, and kept his younger sister in school with the rest. Sade had already threatened his job twice that month. Still, the tablet between Grace's fingers bothered him. "Madam," he called carefully, "perhaps I can bring water from the—" Sade turned so quickly that Bode swallowed the rest of the sentence. "Nobody asked you anything." She looked back at Grace. The old woman had lowered her hand to her chest. "Move away from my wall." "My daughter, I am trying." Grace placed her palm on the curb and attempted to rise. Her arm shook. She sat again before her knees gave way. "Just water, please." Sade's gaze went past her to the grey bucket by the tap. Bode saw the decision enter her face. "Madam, no," he said. Sade crossed the driveway, took the bucket by its plastic handle and dragged it towards the gate. Water slapped against the sides. Bits of loosened green algae floated in the grey suds. Grace looked up confused. "You want water?" Sade said. "Take it. Maybe after this you will remember that this is not your village square." She lifted the bucket with both hands and tipped it. The water struck Grace's head and shoulders. Foam splashed across her face, into her eyes and mouth, down the front of her blouse. The tablet disappeared into the gutter. Her discharge paper, still clutched against her chest, soaked through at once. Grace made one sound, a short gasp. Then she bent forward, both hands over her eyes. Bode was already moving. He pushed through the pedestrian gate before Sade dropped the empty bucket. He did not ask permission. He put one arm around Grace's back and guided her towards the garden tap. "Mama, keep your eyes open," he said. "Do not rub them. Please, keep them open." "What are you doing?" Sade snapped. "There is bleach in that water, Ma. And?" Bode stared at her. For one reckless second, the answer sat on his tongue. He swallowed it and turned on the tap. He lowered Grace onto the low concrete ledge beneath it, removed the nozzle from the garden hose, and let clean water run gently across her forehead and into each eye. Grace flinched and tried to turn away. "Mama, I know it is uncomfortable. We must rinse it. Hold my wrist." She gripped him with surprising strength. Bode checked the wall clock inside the guard post. 2:19. He kept the water running. At 2:23, he called the small clinic at the estate entrance and told the nurse on duty that an older woman had chemical wash water in her eyes and was complaining of chest pressure. At 2:28, Sade was still standing beside them. "You have made enough drama," she said. "Take her outside." Bode continued, rinsing Grace's eyes. "Ma, the nurse is coming. The nurse is coming into my compound for a trespasser, for a chemical exposure." Sade's mouth tightened. "You are very bold today." She went back towards the house, leaving the bucket on its side in the middle of the drive. Bode rinsed Grace's eyes for 19 minutes. When Nurse Kemi arrived with a compact first aid case and a blood pressure monitor, Grace's eyelids were red, but she could see clearly. Her blood pressure read 178/104. The nurse asked about the chest discomfort, checked her pulse, and listened to her breathing. "You should come to the clinic now, Mama," Kemi said. "At least for an ECG and observation." Grace looked towards the house beyond the hedge. "My son lives here." Bode and Kemi exchanged a glance. "Which son?" Bode asked. Grace did not answer immediately. She removed another tablet from the blister pack with wet fingers. Kemi gave her bottled water and watched her take the dose prescribed on the discharge note. After 10 minutes in the shade, the pressure in Grace's chest eased rather than worsened, but Kemi remained firm. "If the pain returns, if it enters your arm or jaw, or if you become short of breath, we are not discussing anything again. We call an ambulance." She wrote the clinic number on the dry back cover of Grace's Bible. "Bode, do not leave her alone." "I will not, nurse." Kemi looked towards the mansion. "And make sure nobody puts another chemical near her skin." Bode said nothing. After the nurse left, he guided Grace behind the guardhouse to a wooden bench screened by hibiscus and bougainvillea. It was not comfortable, but it was shaded and hidden from the main windows. Grace's blouse clung to her back. She removed her wrapper, squeezed the worst of the water from its hem, and retied it. Bode brought a clean towel from his locker and an old security company raincoat for her shoulders. "Mama, please sit. I will find you something dry. Do not trouble yourself. You have already had enough trouble for one afternoon." That brought the smallest smile to her face. Bode crouched near the bench. "You said your son lives here." Grace opened the Bible. Tucked between the pages of Psalm 91 was a small paper on which an address had been written in blue ink. Number 14, Pineapple Close, off Admiralty Way, Lekki Phase 1. Below the address was one name, Tunde Adeyemi. Bode read it twice. "Ogut, yes, the owner of this house? My only child." Bode sat down hard on the edge of his stool. Grace watched the disbelief travel across his face. She had taught children long enough to recognize a mind refusing what the eyes had already accepted. He does not know you are coming, Bode asked. No, why, Mama? Because he would have sent a car, and I wanted to surprise him before his birthday on Saturday. Bode looked at her ruined blouse. This is a surprise, yes, but not the kind any mother should receive. Grace folded the damp hospital note as carefully as the softened paper allowed. 3 years earlier, pneumonia had put her in a public hospital in Abeokuta during the week of Tunde and Sade's wedding. She had watched part of the service through a poor video call on a borrowed phone, the picture freezing every few seconds. Sade had seen Grace twice on that same small screen, both times wrapped in hospital blankets with an oxygen tube beneath her nose. 4 months before this Tuesday, Grace's breathing problem had returned, complicated by hypertension. Tunde visited twice during the first month and arranged for a church member, Mrs. Akinwal, to stay with her after discharge. Then the maritime contract swallowed his days. Grace, who hated being carried on anybody's head, told both Tunde and Mrs. Akinwale that she was recovering faster than she was. When she was finally discharged 3 days earlier, she made them promise not to tell him until she had spoken to him herself. It was stubbornness dressed as independence. She knew that now. Tunde called every evening. On Monday, Grace had told him the hospital network was poor and ended the call before he could hear bus conductors shouting outside her window. At 5:40 the next morning, she left her bungalow with one cloth handbag, 12,500 naira, her medicine and a small loaf of bread. The bus from Ijebu reached Oshodi shortly before 10, while Grace stood beside a trader's trolley searching for the right bus towards the island. Somebody sliced the bottom of her handbag. Her purse and old Nokia phone fell through without her noticing. She discovered the cut when she tried to pay for water. A pepper seller named Halima gave her a sachet and paid her fare in a bus going towards Oberlende. At Oberlende, a conductor listened to her explanation, waved away the fare, and put her in the front seat of a bus heading to Lekki. She got down too early near the first roundabout, confused by the directions, and spent almost 90 minutes walking, stopping and asking again. The final stretch to Pineapple Close was less than 5 kilometers. But in that heat, with swollen knees and a blood pressure she had not checked, it felt much longer. She arrived at 2 o'clock. For 10 minutes she stood across the road, looking at the cream-colored mansion above the wall. Her son had built something large. That knowledge warmed her more than the sun. She crossed over, found the number plate on the gate, and sat for what she intended to be 1 minute. Then Sade came outside. Bode listened without interrupting. When Grace finished, he opened his food flask. Inside was white rice with a thin tomato stew and 1 piece of croaker fish. He put the flask on her lap and handed her another bottle of water. "This is your food," Grace said. It was. "And what will you eat?" "My friend on evening shift owes me 2 meat pies. Today I will collect my debt." Grace looked at him over the rim of the flask. "You are lying." "Only a small lie, Mama." She broke the fish in half and pushed 1 piece back towards him. "Then let us both lie to our stomachs." They ate in the narrow shade behind the guardhouse, 1 spoon passing between silence and traffic noise. Halfway through the meal, the back door of the mansion opened. Sade stepped onto the terrace. She had changed into a deep green lace gown for the evening. A stylist followed behind her, adjusting the fall of the fabric. Sadie glanced towards the guard post and saw the edge of Grace's wrapper behind the hedge. "Bode," he stood at once. Sadie crossed the lawn, careful not to let her gown touch the grass. "Did I not tell you to remove this woman?" "Ma," the clinic nurse assessed her. "Her blood pressure is high. She needs to remain seated while—" "I did not ask for a medical lecture." Grace began to rise. Bode put out a hand. "Mama, please sit." Sadie's eyes moved from the shared food flask to the raincoat around Grace's shoulders. "You brought her inside my compound. You fed her. You called a nurse. On the day government directors are coming here. She needed help. What you need is a final query. When this event ends, you will hand over your uniform." Bode's sister's school fees came into his mind. So did his mother's rent. His jaw worked once. "Yes, Ma." Sade pointed towards the hedge. "If one guest sees her, you will not wait until morning." She turned and walked away. Grace watched Bode until the green gown disappeared through the back doors. "My son, I will go to the clinic," she said. "Do not lose your work because of me." Bode picked up the empty food flask. "You will go nowhere until Oga Tunde comes home. You have people depending on you. So does every human being. That cannot be the excuse we use to leave somebody on the ground." He said it plainly, without a proverb, and without looking for praise. Grace settled back on the bench. For the first time that afternoon, she allowed herself to close her eyes. Inside the house, cold air poured from 4 split-unit air conditioners. The marble floor shone. 34 place settings covered the long dining tables Sade had ordered joined together in the main hall. Each plate edged in gold, each napkin folded into a fan. She walked between the caterers with a list on her phone. "Those are ivory," she told the catering supervisor. "I ordered bone white." Mr. Victor looked from the napkins to Sade. They were white, entirely white. "Madam, this is the batch approved yesterday. Do not argue with me in my own house. Replace them. The supplier is in Victoria Island. Traffic, then send a motorcycle." Victor stopped speaking. At the glassware station, a young assistant named Samuel held a champagne flute to the chandelier light. He had been polishing glasses for nearly an hour. His palms had begun to wrinkle from hot water. Sade took the glass from him, found a thumbprint near the base, and held it up. "What is this?" Samuel looked. "A mark, Ma, a mark." She passed it back. "At least you can identify it. Clean all of them again." "Yes, Ma. If one director drinks from a dirty glass, Victor will remove the cost from your payment." Samuel nodded, though his payment for the day would not cover 2 of the glasses. Sade moved on. Her phone rang at 4:45. Chief Mrs. Veronica's photograph filled the screen. Sade answered with a smile so quick and complete that the nearest caterer looked up. "My sister! Are you dressed already?" Veronica asked about the guest list and the photographers. Sade paced towards the tall window overlooking the lawn, lowering her voice to a confidential sweetness. "Everything is ready. The authority people will arrive before 7. You know Tunde wanted something small, but a contract like this should not enter the house like a thief. People must see what God has done." Veronica laughed and mentioned a newspaper report about Sade's charity foundation. Yes, the Widows Program," Sade said. "We released 3 million last Thursday. The publicity was excellent. Even the company accountant said the donation will help our year-end position." She paused, then corrected herself. "Of course, that is not why we did it. My heart has always been with struggling women." Through the window, she could see only part of the guardhouse. A strip of faded green wrapper showed between the hibiscus leaves. Sade's smile remained in place for Veronica, but her left hand closed around the curtain. She ended the call, summoned the house manager, and told him to make sure the side of the compound stayed dark during guest arrivals. "Madam, should we not switch on all the security lights?" he asked. "Use the front lights. Leave the hedge side off." He looked towards the gate, understood enough not to ask more, and went to carry out the instruction. 14 floors above the marina waterfront, Tunde Adeyemi sat at the head of a glass conference table while 7 officials reviewed the final labor schedule for the Federal Maritime Transport Authority contract. Tunde was 34 4 days from his 35th birthday. He wore a navy suit and a plain blue tie. The tie had cost less than the pen in Mr. Sanusi's breast pocket, a detail Sade disliked and Tunde found amusing. Mr. Sanusi, the authority's lead contract auditor, pushed a marked page across the table. "One remaining issue," he said. "Your driver medical scheme. The premium is higher than comparable operators. It covers emergency care outside Lagos," Tunde replied. "It also covers dependents, yes. If the dependent cover is removed, the contract margin improves by roughly 62 million naira over the first year." Tunde read the figures again, though he had memorized them the night before. "How many drivers does that affect?" 218. "And how many dependents?" 406 on the current register. Tunde placed the paper flat. "Then removing it means 406 people lose access to care, so the company can display a larger number at year-end." Mr. Sanusi adjusted his glasses. I am presenting the option, Mr. Adeyemi, and I am rejecting it. Reduce the executive vehicle budget. Delay the refurbishment of the Abuja office. Leave the driver's cover alone. A director across the table gave a small nod. Tunde had grown up watching his mother calculate every expense twice. Grace could divide a salary into rent, school fees, food, and transport without putting pen to paper. When money failed to reach all four, she cut her own portion first. He had seen her soak Gary in plain water and tell him she had eaten at school. That memory did not make him sentimental about labor costs. It made him exact. His personal phone vibrated against the leather folder. Sad. He ignored the first call. It rang again before Mr. Sanusi reached the next page. "Excuse me," Tunde said. He stepped into his inner office and closed the frosted door. "Said, I am finishing the sign-off." "Finishing? Do you know the time?" 5:22. "The guests will begin arriving before 7. And your security guard has decided to turn our compound into a shelter." Tunde looked through the office window at the lagoon. "What happened?" An old woman came to the gate. Dirty wrapper, bare feet, the usual story. She said she lost her phone and needed water for medicine. What did Bode do? He brought her inside, fed her, and called the clinic. He has hidden her behind the guardhouse after I told him to remove her. There was a brief silence. "Why did he call the clinic?" Tunde asked. Said hesitated. "She was pretending to be weak." "That was not my question. She got some wash water on herself and started acting as if she had been poisoned." "How did she get wash water on herself?" Said's voice sharpened. "Tunde, please do not start interrogating me over a stranger. I threw water near her so she would move. Bode is exaggerating because I told him I would report him." "Near her?" "Yes." Tunde removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Listen carefully. Nobody is to touch that woman. Bode is not to be dismissed. Give her clean water and let the clinic decide whether she is fit to leave." "So you are choosing a street beggar over your wife?" "I am choosing basic sense. We do not throw chemicals around elderly people because guests are coming. You do not understand what these people do. They watch rich homes. They gather information. Then security can verify who she is without humiliating her. You are too soft with people who know how to exploit softness." Tunde looked at the photograph on the side of his desk. Grace stood beside him at his university graduation. One hand holding her handbag and the other gripping his gown as if somebody might take him away. "What did she say her name was?" "I did not ask." "Did Bode?" "I am not discussing this nonsense again. Come home and handle him." "I am leaving now." Tunde ended the call. He remained by the desk for a moment. Something in Sade's account did not sit properly. She had said the woman was pretending, yet a clinic nurse had attended. She had said water landed near her, yet the woman was still hidden in wet clothes. He returned to the boardroom. "Gentlemen, we have reached agreement on the welfare schedule," he said. "My legal team will circulate the amended draft before 9 tomorrow. Mr. Sanusi, I will sign after final review." Sanusi closed his folder. "Your guests are waiting, I assume. My wife's guests." That drew a low laugh around the table. Tunde shook hands, took the private lift to the basement, and found Sunday beside the black SUV. "Sir, traffic is building near Ozumba Mbadiwe," Sunday said. "We should still reach before 6:45. Drive normally." Sunday opened the rear door. "Yes, sir." As the vehicle moved out of Marina, Tunde called Mrs. Akinwala in Ogun State. The churchwoman answered on the fourth ring. "Good evening, my son." "Good evening, ma. How is my mother?" A pause. "Tunde, is she at home?" Another pause, longer this time. "She traveled this morning." Tunde sat upright. "Traveled where?" "She said she was going to Lagos to surprise you." "What time did she leave?" "Before 6. "Who went with her?" "She refused anybody." "I tried." "My son, you know your mother. Once she has tied her wrapper for a journey, even a pastor cannot untie it." Tunde looked out at the slow traffic, but he was no longer seeing the road. "Has she called you?" "Her phone has been switched off since morning." The old woman at the gate. Dirty wrapper, lost phone, medicine. Tunde's fingers tightened around the phone. Ma, send me a recent photograph of what she wore when she left. I did not take one. What color was the wrapper? Green, the old one with the yellow leaf pattern. The inside of the SUV seemed to narrow. Sunday, the driver checked the mirror. Sir? Call Bode. Put him on speaker. Sunday dialed. The call rang twice and disconnected. He tried again. No answer. At number 14, Bode's phone was inside the guard post, charging beneath the desk while he helped Grace change into a dry polo shirt borrowed from the evening guard. The shirt reached her knees. She laughed when she saw herself. I look like one of your security recruits. You have more authority than all of us, Mama. Authority without salary. Very dangerous. Bode smiled. Grace had regained some color, though he checked her breathing each time she became quiet. The evening guard, Musa, brought 2 meat pies and a cup of warm tea from the staff kitchen. Bode had not lied after all. The debt existed. Grace ate half a pie. The rest remained in the paper bag beside her. At 6:12, the first hired lighting crew switched on the canopy lamps near the pool. Jazz came through outdoor speakers. Car doors began closing on the street outside. Grace watched waiters carry trays past the hedge. This party is for Tunde? Yes, Mama. He never liked crowds. Madam Saad likes enough crowd for both of them. Bode regretted the sentence as soon as it left his mouth. Grace did not rebuke him. She folded the paper bag around the uneaten meat pie. A marriage is a room with its door closed, she said. People outside should be careful what they claim to know. Bode nodded. At 6:20, he found the missed calls from Sunday. He returned one immediately. Sir? Bode, is the elderly woman still there? Sunday asked. Yes, sir. Olga wants to know her name. Bode looked at Grace. Grace Adeyemi. Silence filled the line. Then Tunde's voice came through, no longer distant in the back seat. Put her on the phone. Bode crossed the narrow space and held out the handset. Mama, it is Olga Tunde. Grace did not take it. Her face changed. She pressed her lips together, and for a moment she looked not like a retired teacher, but like a mother caught doing something she had warned her own child never to do. Tell him I am well, she said. Tunde heard her. Mama? Grace closed her eyes. Tunde, my child, where are you sitting? Near your gate. Why did you travel alone? We will discuss my stubbornness when you reach home. What happened to your phone? It was stolen. And your clothes? Grace looked down at Bode's oversized polo shirt, and the damp wrapper spread over the bench. I had a small accident with water. Tun's breathing altered. What kind of water? Grace glanced at Bode. He had turned away, giving her the privacy she had not asked for. Tunde, drive carefully. I am safe now. Mama, answer me. I will answer when you arrive. She handed the phone back to Bode. The call had not ended. Bode, Tunde said, do not move her. Do not allow anybody near her. I am 15 minutes away. Yes, sir. And thank you. Bode looked at the phone after the line went dead. Grace raised one eyebrow. He thanked you before hearing the full story. That boy has already judged the matter. He sounded afraid. He is my son. Fear and anger sit too close in him when it concerns me. Outside, another car horn sounded at the gate. The guests had begun to arrive. By 6:30, Pineapple Close no longer resembled a residential street. Drivers eased black and silver vehicles through the gate, while hired security men directed them along the wall. The smell of suya, grilled lamb and hot butter drifted from the catering tent. White lights shivered across the swimming pool. Said stood beneath the porch chandelier in a deep green lace gown. 3 strands of pearls rested at her throat. She greeted every guest with both hands and called people she barely knew my sister or my brother, as though they had shared a childhood compound. Chief Mrs. Veronica arrived in a blue Bentley, her purple jail rising above the car roof before the rest of her appeared. Said, Veronica spread her arms. You have carried celebration on your head today. If we do not celebrate our husbands, who will? Sadi said. She guided Veronica inside, positioning them near the staircase where the photographers had the cleanest angle. The first camera flashed. Sade lowered her chin, softened her smile, and turned slightly so the pearls caught the light. A lifestyle reporter asked about her recent widow's donation. Sade's answer came without hesitation. Money has no meaning unless it restores dignity, she said. When God gives you influence, you must use it for people who cannot enter the rooms you enter. Veronica touched her arm. That is why everybody respects you. Behind the guardhouse, Bode heard the sentence through an open window. He looked at Grace. Grace was watching a small moth beat itself against the security light. She did not react. Musa muttered something under his breath. What did you say? Bode asked. I said God is patient. Be careful. God may hear you and give you a microphone. Musa almost laughed, then covered it with a cough. Grace shook her head at both men, though the corner of her mouth moved. At 6:38, Mr. Sanusi arrived with 2 other authority officials. Sad met them on the porch. Welcome, sir. Tunde is on Admiralty Way already. He left before us, Sanusi said. Traffic must have caught him. You know my husband. He spent extra time protecting the driver's medical package. Sometimes I tell him he worries too much about people who would leave the company tomorrow for 5,000 naira more. Sanusi studied her for a second. People usually remain where they are treated as people, Mrs. Adeyemi. Sad smiled as if he had made a joke. Through the wall came the low note of Tunde's SUV horn. Twice. Bode went to the control panel. Grace stood, slower than before, but without help. She folded the borrowed raincoat and placed it on the bench. Mama, keep it on, Bode said. The air is cool. My son is here. That does not make the air warm. She put it back around her shoulders. The gates opened. Tunde's SUV rolled into the compound and stopped just beyond the guard post. Sunday had barely applied the brake when the rear door opened. Tunde stepped out. His gaze found Bode first. Where is she? Bode pointed behind the hedge. Before Tunde could move, a crash split the courtyard. Samuel had been carrying 12 champagne flutes from the service tent. A hose lay across the narrow path, left there after the caterers rinsed a cooler. His shoe caught beneath it. The silver tray tilted. Glass struck concrete and burst across the stones in a bright, violent scatter. Every nearby head turned. Victor came out of the tent. Samuel! The young man stood frozen, both hands still shaped around a tray no longer there. Victor looked at the broken glass, then at the guests near the porch. Are you mad? He said, keeping his voice low at first. Do you know what you have done? Sir, the hose. Do not blame a hose for your useless hands. Victor seized Samuel's wrist and pulled him away from the largest shards. 12 glasses. 15,000 each. Samuel's mouth opened. 180,000 naira, Victor continued. You will repay every kobo. Sir, my monthly pay is 35,000. Then you will work until the debt finishes. Samuel sank to his knees and began reaching for the glass. Stop. Grace's voice came from the dark beside the hedge. She stepped into the canopy light, wearing Bode's oversized polo shirt over her wrapper, the security raincoat loose around her shoulders. Her damp hair had dried in uneven silver curls. The skin around her eyes was red. Bode went after her. Mama, there is glass, I can see it. Grace walked to Samuel and caught his hand before his fingers closed around a jagged stem. Use a brush, she told him. Not your hand. Victor stared at her clothes. Who allowed this woman into the service area? Grace turned to Bode. Is there a broom? Bode fetched one from the guard post. Victor stepped between them. Madam, move away. This boy has damaged company property, and cutting his palm will repair it. That is not your concern. Samuel's breathing had become uneven. Please, sir, do not remove everything from my salary. My mother is on dialysis at Agagi General. I have to buy her drugs on Friday. Victor bent towards him. Your mother did not drop the glasses. Grace's hand remained on Samuel's shoulder. Stand up, she said. He looked at Victor. I said stand up. Kneeling will not unbreak glass. Samuel rose. Grace took the broom from Bode and pushed the larger pieces into one place. She worked carefully, not as a performance, but because a car tire or a bare hand would meet the fragments if nobody did it. Tunde had stopped several meters away. For a moment, he did not recognize the polo shirt. Then Grace turned sideways, and he saw the familiar line of her cheek and the silver wedding band she had refused to remove since his father's death. Mama, Grace looked up. Tunde crossed the space between them. His briefcase slipped from his hand before he reached her. It landed near the curb. He stopped in front of her, taking in the red eyes, the borrowed clothes, the bare swollen feet. Mama, what happened? Grace put down the broom. You have not greeted me. Tunde's face broke. He bent and held her. For several seconds he could not speak. Grace rubbed the back of his neck as she had done when he came home from boarding school with malaria at 14. I am here, she said. Do not squeeze me to death before your birthday. A few guests smiled uncertainly. Most simply watched. Said came down the porch steps. Tunde, darling. Her voice was bright, too bright. You are finally home, everybody is waiting. Tunde did not release his mother. Said approached and stopped when she saw the old woman's face. The blood left her expression. Tunde felt Grace's damp wrapper beneath the polo shirt. He smelled detergent and the faint sting of bleach. He drew back. What happened to your clothes? Grace looked towards Bode. Sadie answered first. She created a disturbance at the gate. Bode should never have brought her inside without identifying her. Tunde turned his head. You knew she had been exposed to chemicals. I told you it was an accident. No, you told me water landed near her. Sade's eyes flicked to the guests gathering behind them. Tunde, this is not the place. It became the place when you left her here. Sade moved closer and lowered her voice. I did not know she was your mother. Grace looked at her then, not sharply. That made it worse. Tunde faced Bode. Tell me exactly what happened. Bode stood with the broom in one hand. His job had already been threatened. The house was full of directors, photographers, and people whose names appeared in newspapers. He looked once at Grace. She did not nod or encourage him. He told the truth anyway. Your mother asked for water to take her medicine, sir. Madame Sade called her a beggar and told her to leave. When Mama could not stand quickly, Madame took the bucket James used for washing the wall and poured it over her head. The pool pump hummed in the silence. Bode continued. The water contained detergent and bleach. I rinsed Mama's eyes and called the estate clinic. Nurse Kemi examined her. Her blood pressure was high. Madame then ordered me to remove her and said I would lose my job if guests saw her. Saad took one step towards him. You are lying. Bode met her gaze. No, Ma. You are trying to protect yourself because I reported your misconduct. Musa came from the guard post. I saw it too, sir, he said. Not the pouring itself, I arrived after. But the bucket, Mama's clothes and Nurse Kemi's report are in the incident log. Sunday walked to the grey bucket still lying by the garden tap. He picked it up, smelled the inside and set it down again. Sade's voice rose. All of you have planned this. She sat at the gate like a common street woman. How was I supposed to know? Tunde stared at her. Know what? That she was your mother. What difference would that have made to the chemical in the bucket? Sade's lips moved, but the answer did not come. Tunde looked at Grace. The discharge note was folded into the front of the borrowed polo shirt. One corner had softened into pulp. He touched it with 2 fingers. You came from the hospital 3 days ago, Grace sighed. We will discuss my own offense later. You should have told me. Yes, you traveled alone. Yes, your phone was stolen, and you still continued. I have already admitted that mothers can also behave foolishly. A sound escaped Tunde, half laugh and half sob. He pressed his forehead to hers. Then Sade said, Can we take this inside before the press turns it into something ugly? Tunde straightened. The photographers had lowered their cameras, but nobody had left. Chief Mrs. Veronica stood near the stairs with one hand against her throat. Mr. Sanusi's face had become still. Tunde removed his suit jacket and wrapped it around Grace, covering the borrowed shirt and damp wrapper. He picked up her slippers, placed them beside her feet, and helped her into them. Mama, can you walk? I walked enough today, but I can cross your parlor. I will carry you. You will not. Your back is not insured for stubborn mothers. Despite everything, a few people laughed softly. Tunde offered his arm instead. Grace took it. Said blocked their path by a fraction. Tunde, please. The authority board came for you. The food is ready. People have traveled across Lagos. Mr. Sanusi stepped forward before Tunde answered. Mrs. Adeyemi, he said. Nobody here has an appetite. Sade stared at him. Tunde addressed the guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I am ending the event. My mother requires medical attention and rest. My office will contact each of you tomorrow. There was no grand speech. No shouted declaration. That restraint exposed Sade more completely than a performance would have done. Mr. Sanusi walked to Grace and bowed his head. Ma, I am sorry your first welcome to this house was like this. Grace touched his forearm. Thank you, my son. Chief Mrs. Veronica came next. Her eyes moved between Grace and Saad. Madam, She had no useful sentence. She left without finishing it. One by one, the guests turned towards the gate. The photographers packed their equipment. Victor quietly instructed his staff to sweep the glass and load the unused food. Tunde stopped him. Samuel will not pay for those glasses. Victor's face tightened. Sir, he broke company property. He tripped over a hose your team left across a service path. Send the invoice to my office, together with your safety report. Victor nodded. And take him to check his hands. Yes, sir. Samuel looked at Grace. Thank you, Ma. Next time, use your eyes before your feet, she told him. Kindness does not cancel carelessness. That was the teacher in her. Samuel almost smiled. Within minutes, engines started along Pineapple Close. The party Said had spent 2 weeks constructing disappeared through the gate in a line of red tail lights. Tunde guided Grace up the porch steps. At the threshold, he turned to Bode. You are not losing your job. Bode lowered his head. Thank you, sir. You will remain on duty tonight only until Musa completes the handover. Tomorrow, come to my office at 10. Bring the incident log and Nurse Kemi's contact details. Yes, sir. Tunde looked towards the grey bucket. Seal it in a refuse bag. Do not wash it. Said stood alone near the lawn, the hem of her green gown darkened by wet grass. Tunde did not order her out in front of the remaining staff. He did not insult her. He opened the door for his mother and followed her inside. The quiet he left behind frightened Said more than shouting would have done. The front door closed on the last of the departing guests. Inside, the house looked as if celebration had been interrupted by an alarm. Champagne stood untouched on silver trays. One chair had been pulled out and left crooked. A napkin lay on the marble floor where somebody had dropped it while leaving. Tunde led Grace into the ground floor guest suite and helped her onto the cream sofa. The damp wrapper marked the fabric beneath her. He did not notice. Sunday, ask Nurse Kemi to return, he said. Tell her I want a doctor if she can arrange one. Yes, sir. Musa should bring Mama's bag and the clinic note. Sunday left. Grace looked around the room. This place is bigger than my whole house. It is a room, Mama. A room with its own sitting room. Tunde knelt in front of her and examined the redness around her eyes without touching it. Can you see clearly? Yes. Any chest pain? Not now. Dizziness? I am hungry again. That was not one of the options. It is the answer to you received. He looked down and she saw him fighting tears. Grace placed a hand on his head. Tunde, I left you there. You did not know I was there. I should have known you had left the hospital. I should have come myself. You called every day. I lied every day. Let us share the blame properly. He shook his head. Grace tilted his chin upwards. Do not turn love into a stick for beating yourself. It helps nobody. When Nurse Kemi returned, she came with Dr. Afolabi from the estate clinic. They checked Grace's eyes again, repeated her blood pressure reading, and ran a portable ECG. The doctor asked the same questions in 3 different ways, watching for any change in her answer. The blood pressure had fallen, though it remained high. The ECG showed no immediate emergency. Her eyes were irritated, but her vision was intact. She should be observed tonight, Dr. Afolabi said. If the chest pressure returns, call us immediately. Tomorrow morning, bring her to the clinic for a full review. Tunde nodded and wrote down every instruction. Grace noticed. He has done this since secondary school. If you tell him one thing, he writes 10. That habit may save us tonight, Ma, the doctor said. After they left, Tunde filled a basin with warm water. He brought it to the sofa, spread towels beneath it, and removed Grace's slippers. Her soles were cracked. A blister had opened beneath one toe. Dust remained in the fine lines of her skin. Tunde, call one of the girls, Grace said. He rolled up his sleeves. No, you are wearing office clothes. I own other clothes. A chief executive kneeling on the floor to wash feet. If your staff sees you, tomorrow they will demand promotion. Tunde dipped a cloth into the water. These feet carried you through school, he said. They can endure one chief executive. He washed them carefully, avoiding the blister. Grace fell silent. Her fingers rested against the back of his neck. From the doorway came a small sound. Sade stood there. She had removed the pearls. Without them, her neck looked strangely bare. Her green gown was still immaculate above the knees and ruined below them. Tunde, he continued, washing his mother's foot. Can we speak? Not in this room. Please. Grace withdrew her hand from his neck. I can go to the bathroom. You will stay where you are, Tunde said. Sade entered 2 steps. I know what it looked like outside. Tunde put down the cloth. What did it look like? Her eyes went to Grace, then back to him. It looked worse, because everybody heard only Bodhi's side. Nurse Kemi wrote down what she treated. I did not know the bucket contained that much bleach. You knew it was wash water. She was refusing to move. She could not stand. I thought she was acting. Why? Sade opened her mouth and found only the truth. Because people like that lie. Grace's face did not change. Tunde's did. People like what? He asked. Sade looked away. Tunde, I made a terrible mistake. I accept that. But you never properly introduced us. I saw old photographs. I saw her once on a broken video call. How could I know? You keep answering the wrong question. What question? Why did an old woman need to be my mother before you would give her water? The air conditioner clicked off. The sudden absence of its hum left the room bare. Sade wiped beneath one eye before tears could disturb her makeup. I was afraid she was studying the house. We were hosting government officials. I have read stories about criminals using old women. A reasonable person calls security. A reasonable person asks for identification. A reasonable person keeps distance and offers water through the gate. You chose a bucket. I lost my temper. No, you used power because you believed nobody who mattered would object. Sade flinched. Tunde stood, dried his hands, and faced her. Tonight, you will stay in the East Guest Wing. Do not enter this room again unless Mama asks for you. This is my house too. It is our marital residence. That does not give you permission to disturb a patient. Her face tightened at the legal precision of the sentence. What happens tomorrow? Tomorrow, you will go to your father's house for a temporary separation while we decide what comes next. Take your personal clothes and belongings. Leave company property here. You are sending me away because of one mistake? I am separating from you because the mistake exposed something I can no longer pretend not to see. Tunde, people will talk. They already are. That landed harder than anything else. Sade looked at Grace. Mama, please say something. Grace folded the towel over her knees. My eyes are painful, my daughter. Tonight is not the night for me to decide your marriage. Sade stood there another moment, then picked up her gown and walked out. In the corridor, she stopped beside the gilded mirror. The woman in it still wore a dress made for photographs, but the house behind her had changed. Staff moved past without waiting for her instructions. Nobody asked whether the glasses should be cleared or the flowers moved. Her authority had not been seized with a dramatic announcement. It had simply stopped working. At 6:30 the next morning, Tunde was in the kitchen preparing tea when Bodhi arrived in a clean white shirt and dark trousers borrowed from Sunday. He carried the guard log, a sealed refuse bag containing the bucket, and a copy of Nurse Kemi's incident note. You were told 10, Tunde said. Yes, sir, I could not sleep. Neither could I. Tunde took the documents and read the log. Bode had recorded times, names, the rinsing procedure, and the nurse's blood pressure readings. He had even written that Sade instructed him to remove Grace after treatment. This is thorough. My supervisor says if something happens and it is not in the book, then it did not happen. Tunde closed the file. You acted outside your contract when you brought Mama into the compound. Bode's shoulders lowered slightly. Yes, sir. You also prevented further injury. I will speak to the security company. For now, you remain at the gate on full pay. I want you transferred from night rotation and enrolled in a certified first aid and community safeguarding course. After that, we will discuss a role in a project I am considering. Bode blinked. He had expected praise, dismissal, or money. Training was not among his guesses. Thank you, sir. You will also give a formal statement. Tell the truth exactly as it happened. Do not improve it because you think I want more. Yes, sir. Tunde poured tea into 2 cups. Have you eaten? No, sir. Sit. Bode hesitated. That was not a ceremonial instruction. He sat at the kitchen island. In the dining room, Grace wore a soft cotton gown Sunday had purchased from an early opening shop in Ikoyi, along with flat leather slippers and a headscarf. She had slept in short intervals while Tunde checked on her so often that she finally threatened to lock the bedroom door. He brought her tea, boiled eggs and bread. You have put enough food here for a meeting, she said. You said you were hungry. I did not say I had become 3 people. She ate half an egg and watched him over the cup. Your wife has not come down. She is packing. Did you sleep? No. Then your judgment is tired. My decision is temporary. Good. Temporary decisions can breathe. Tunde sat beside her. I cannot have her here. I did not ask you to. I will speak to a lawyer today. You should, and she should have her own lawyer, not only yours. He looked at her. Grace tore bread into small pieces. Fairness must remain fairness, even when the person facing it has behaved badly. At 7:20, Sade entered the dining room wearing a plain black dress. Her makeup was gone. 2 suitcases stood in the hall. She stopped several feet from Grace. Mama Grace pointed to a chair. Sit, Sad did not. She lowered herself to her knees instead. Tunde rose immediately. Stand up. Please let me speak. Sade looked at Grace. I am sorry. I cannot defend what I did. I was suspicious, and then I became angry because you did not move quickly. I did not know who you were. Grace's gaze remained steady. Would you be apologizing this morning if my son repaired generators by the roadside? Sad's chin trembled. I do not know. It was the first honest answer she had given. Grace nodded once. Then you have not reached the center of the problem. I want to change. Wanting is easy while 2 suitcases are waiting at the door. Sade wiped her face with the heel of her hand. Do you forgive me? I will not carry poison in my chest because of you. So yes, I forgive you. Grace paused. But forgiveness is not a key to this house. It does not cancel consequence, and it does not make Tunde forget what he saw. Sade lowered her eyes. Grace continued more gently. Stand up. Do not kneel to collect your old life back. If you are sorry, the work will show it when nobody is watching. Sade rose. Tunde spoke without anger. Sunday will take you to your father's house. My lawyer will contact you this afternoon about access to your personal funds and belongings. Your own bank account remains yours. The supplementary company cards and company vehicle are suspended because they are corporate assets. My foundation? The board will review its finances independently. You will not transfer or destroy any records. Sade's face tightened. She had expected pain. The mention of records produced fear. Tunde noticed. We will discuss that separately. She picked up her handbag and went to the hall. At the door, she turned towards Grace. I am sorry, Mama. Grace did not answer with another lesson. She only said, go safely. The Range Rover left Pineapple Close at 7:45. Sade sat behind Sunday, looking through tinted glass at the shops opening along the road. For years, she had treated Lagos as 2 cities, the one behind walls and the one that served it. That morning, she was traveling from one into the other, with 2 suitcases in the boot. Number 42 Alhaji Masha Street stood behind a low iron fence in Surulere. The paint on the family bungalow had once been green. Sun and rain had reduced it to several shades. Said's elder brother, Femi, opened the door. He was 38, a secondary school mathematics teacher in a brown native shirt. Their father, Pa Joseph, sat in the parlor reading yesterday's newspaper beneath a ceiling fan that squeaked at every turn. Sunday carried in the luggage and handed Femi a sealed letter. Ogatunde asked me to deliver this, sir. His lawyer will call later. What happened? Femi asked. Sunday glanced at Sade. The letter explains the immediate arrangement. I was not instructed to discuss private family matters. He bowed to Pa Joseph and left. Saad entered the parlor. The room smelled of furniture polish, old paper and the hibiscus tea her father drank every morning. Her late mother's china still occupied the glass cabinet. A faint crack crossed one saucer from the day. Saad had dropped it at 16 and blamed Femi. Pa Joseph removed his glasses. Sit down. Said remained standing. Tunda has sent me away. Her father opened the letter. He read slowly. Femi read over his shoulder. The only sounds were the ceiling fan and a bus conductor shouting from the junction. When Pa Joseph finished, he placed the paper on the table. Is it true? Sade pressed her hands together. I did not know she was his mother. That is not what I asked. She stared at the worn rug. Yes, you poured dirty water containing bleach over an old woman who asked for drinking water. Yes. Pa Joseph looked towards the framed photograph of his late wife on the wall. In it, she stood behind a roadside plantain stand, laughing at somebody outside the frame. Your mother sold fried plantain outside this house for 11 years, he said. Some customers called her that woman by the gutter. She came inside at night with smoke in her hair and sent you to school with the money. Saad began crying. Do not use tears to interrupt me. She covered her mouth. I worked at the postal service until my knees failed. Your brother teaches 60 children in a classroom built for 35. None of us became less human because our clothes were ordinary. Father, I made a mistake. A mistake is buying salt twice. What you did began in the way you had trained yourself to see people. Femi sat opposite her. Did the guard really give her his food? Yes, and you threatened his job? Sade said nothing. Femi leaned back. Then you should not be asking why Tunde sent you here. Ask how a man earning less than your monthly salon bill knew what was right before you did. Pa Joseph stood with difficulty. You may stay in your old room. You will help with food and electricity from whatever allowance is agreed. In this house, nobody carries your plate. Nobody washes your clothes unless they also wash their own. And you will not insult the neighbors. Sad looked up. I would never. Her father's expression stopped her. She carried one suitcase upstairs herself. At 9:16, her phone began vibrating on the bed. There were 28 missed calls and more than 60 messages. A 42-second video had been posted on a Lagos society blog. One of Victor's temporary staff had recorded the courtyard after the glass broke. The clip showed Tunde standing beside Grace, Bode giving his statement and Sade saying, clearly, I did not know she was your mother. The headline read, Lekki socialite accused of pouring bleach water on CEO, mother before gala. The video did not show the actual assault. It did not need to. Bode's account, Grace's clothes and Sadie's own words were enough to feed thousands of strangers. Her charity trustees had called an emergency meeting. 2 sponsors suspended funding pending an audit. The Ikoyi Women's Social Club removed her from its welfare committee. Veronica issued a statement saying she was shocked and deeply saddened. Sade read that sentence 3 times. Only the night before, Veronica had held her hand beneath the chandelier and called her compassionate. A message appeared from an unknown number. You deserved worse. Another followed. Animal in silk. Sade switched off the phone and put it in the wardrobe. Her hands would not stop shaking. Downstairs, Pa Joseph turned up the volume of the radio to hear the morning news. Femi marked exercise books at the dining table. Nobody came to ask whether Say was all right. At number 14, Grace sat beneath a mango tree in the garden, while Tunde spoke to 3 people on separate calls. His lawyer, the estate clinic, and the security contractor. By noon, he had done what he always did when frightened. She also made Tunde remove a publicity photograph in which an elderly recipient was holding a bag of rice beneath an oversized company logo. Did she consent? Grace asked. The partner organization said yes. Did she understand the photograph would be used in newspapers? Tunde checked. She had not. The image was withdrawn. Helping somebody does not purchase their face, Grace said. That lesson entered the trust's communications policy. The new center took shape slowly. The leased three-story building stood 2 streets from Pineapple Close, but renovation revealed bad wiring and a leaking roof. Opening moved from June to August. Tunde complained about the delay until the project engineer showed him scorch marks inside one electrical conduit. After 2 minutes, Auntie Rose opened the door. If you are ill, go to matron. I am not ill, good. We have 2 more rows. Sade wiped her face and followed her back into the ward. Sade returned on Wednesday. She had spent Tuesday at her first counseling session, where Dr. Morenik Falade asked her to describe the people who had worked in her home. Sade could name Sunday, Bode and James. She could not remember the surname of the housekeeper who had cooked for her for 18 months. How many times did you ask about her family? Dr. Falade said. I paid her salary. That was not my question. Sade disliked the counselor immediately. Delay is cheaper than fire, the engineer said. After that, Tunde stopped complaining. Bode completed first aid, safeguarding, and case record training. He passed the computer assessment on his second attempt. The program appointed him community operations coordinator under an experienced social work director named Neka Balagun. His new office contained 1 desk, 2 plastic visitor chairs, and a printer that jammed whenever the weather became humid. He wore a tie on the first day, removed it before noon, and kept it in the drawer thereafter. Director people wear tie, Musa teased when he visited. I am not a director. Coordinator is director that has not eaten enough. Bode threw a paperclip at him. But do not use your money to make the punishment larger than it would be for another person. Tunde was quiet. What would you ask for? He said. A process that forces her to meet the kind of people she has trained herself not to see. Work, not photographs. Time, not one public apology. And restitution for the care she interrupted. You want community service. I want her to serve people without controlling them. Whether the law or a proper agreement can arrange that, your lawyer will know. Tunde rubbed his palms together. And the marriage, that one is yours. Do not remain because I forgave her. Do not leave because people expect a dramatic ending. At number 14, the silence after Sade's departure settled into routine. Tunde worked, visited the renovation site, and spent evenings with Grace. On Saturdays, they cooked together, though Tunde measured seasoning as if conducting an audit, and Grace added pepper when he was not looking. The separation did not remain suspended in uncertainty forever. At the end of the 3rd month, Tunde and Saad attended 2 marital counseling sessions. They spoke about more than the gate incident. Sadie admitted resenting Grace before meeting her because Tunde referred to his mother as the moral authority in every disagreement. Tunde admitted using Grace's example to win arguments instead of confronting problems directly. She came back to Ward B carrying that dislike with her. Auntie Rose showed her how to change occupied bed linen without forcing an elderly resident to stand. Sade pulled one sheet too hard and made Papa Dele slide towards the edge. Easy, Auntie Rose said. He is a person, not a sack of rice. Papa Dele laughed from the bed. Madam wants to export me. Sade's first instinct was to defend herself. Instead, she repositioned the sheet. Sorry, Papa. You will improve, he said, or they will send me a helmet. By Friday, the muscles across her shoulders felt knotted. She had learned where fresh gloves were stored, how to read the cleaning chart, and which residents became confused after sunset. They also examined Sade's treatment of staff, Tunde's avoidance of conflict, and the distance he had allowed between his wife and mother. Understanding did not rebuild trust. After the second session, they sat in separate chairs outside the counselor's office. I do not hate you, Tunde said. Sade looked at her hands. The nails were short and unpainted. I know. I also do not believe I can return to the marriage. She nodded. Her face tightened, but she did not beg. 3 months ago, I would have told you that you were destroying me. And now I know I had already damaged things you were refusing to name. Tunde came with Chuka. Grace sat beside a trained mediator named Mrs. Ease. Nobody wore ceremonial clothes. The mediator began with rules. No interruptions, no threats, no bargaining over whether the harm occurred. The purpose was to decide what acknowledgement, repair and boundaries might look like. Said's solicitor had warned her not to perform remorse. Say only what you can accept in writing, Halima told her before they entered. Sade read from a statement she had prepared. I poured wash water containing detergent and bleach over Mrs. Grace Adeyemi after she asked for water and was unable to stand quickly. I called her a beggar and ordered a guard not to assist her. My actions exposed her to physical harm and humiliation. They agreed to proceed with a formal legal separation and property settlement through their lawyers. Sada retained her personal assets, a modest monthly support payment for a limited period and access to personal possessions. She relinquished claims to company-controlled vehicles and accounts that had never been hers individually. There was no sudden impoverishment and no return to luxury. There was a boundary. When Sade told Pa Joseph, he was repairing the plug of an old standing fan. Is that what you want? He asked. I did not want it, but I accept it. That is not the same thing. No. He tightened one screw. Then build a life you can stand inside without borrowing another person's name. She had also learned that service did not reward dramatic effort. Nobody applauded a properly disinfected commode. The next ones simply waited. During breakfast, Mama Bisi asked Sade to spread margarine on bread. Not too much, the old woman said. My mouth is old, but it is not a gutter. Sade scraped some back into the tub. Better, you cannot see it. I can hear wastefulness. Sade looked at Auntie Rose, who was laughing into a cupboard. The second week was worse than the first. The novelty disappeared. The work remained. A resident named Mama Raliat refused to bathe and threw a plastic bowl across the washroom. By the fourth month, Sade traveled to the care center without checking whether anybody recognized her. She knew the conductors who stopped closest to Yaba. She carried exact change. She had stopped wearing sunglasses indoors. The work had also become more demanding. Matron Agnes moved her from cleaning-only duties into supervised support tasks, meal assistance, linen inventory, recreation setup, and escorting mobile residents to the garden. Sade learned to ask before touching a wheelchair. She learned that some residents wanted conversation and others wanted silence. She learned not to speak to an adult in the high, false voice used for children. One afternoon, Mama Raliat refused lunch. Sade began persuading her, then stopped. What would you eat? She asked. For the first time since arriving, Grace allowed Tunde to call Mrs. Akinwale. The churchwoman spoke for 2 minutes without taking a breath. Mama Grace, you see what your stubborn head has caused? I told you, I begged you. Even the bus conductor knows more sense than you. Grace held the phone away from her ear. She has been storing this sermon since yesterday, she told Tunde. Mrs. Akinwale heard her and continued louder. That small domestic quarrel did more to settle Tunde than any reassurance from the doctor. 3 days later, he announced a 2-part plan to his company board. Adeyemi Global Logistics would fund a 1-year emergency program through the Lagos Senior Support Network, an existing non-profit with audited accounts, trained social workers, and partnerships with public clinics. Amala, the kitchen, made rice. Then the kitchen can eat rice. Sade checked with the diet assistant, called Femi, and asked him to bring a small portion of amala from a nearby food cellar on his way home from school. Matron Agnes approved it after confirming Mama Raliat's dietary restrictions. The old woman ate half and saved the rest. Sade did not post the story. She did not tell Veronica. She mentioned it only in her placement log because the meal substitution had to be recorded. That was how the change became believable, not in speeches, but in the absence of an audience. In the 5th month, Pa Joseph developed a chest infection. Another accused Sade of stealing a comb that was later found beneath her pillow. Papa Dele spilled tea on a floor Sade had just dried. A family member arrived 2 hours late, criticized the smell of the ward, and left without helping his father eat. Sade went home furious. These people are impossible, she told Femi while he marked algebra papers. Which people? The residents, the families, everybody. Femi circled a wrong answer in red. You worked 6 hours. 7. Then you have become an expert. She glared at him. He looked up. Did you pour water on anybody? No progress. Sade went upstairs and slammed her door. Sade took him to the clinic, collected his medication, and sat awake through the first night, listening to his breathing from the adjoining room. At 2 in the morning, he called her name. She went in with water. Pa Joseph swallowed his tablets, then looked at the cup in her hand. Your mother used to say character is what remains when nobody can reward you. Sade adjusted his pillow. I remember. You remembered late. Yes, he drank again. Late is still before never. It was the closest he had come to forgiveness. The legal process continued. The Independent Charity Board recovered the misallocated publicity expenses and adopted new controls. Her voice failed on the final word. She stopped, took water, and continued. I did not act because I feared an immediate attack. I acted because I believed her appearance made her less deserving of consideration. I accept that this belief was cruel. Grace listened without expression. The mediator asked, What are you prepared to do that does not depend on your husband taking you back? Saad had expected a question about apology. This one unsettled her. I will pay her medical expenses. Tunde has already paid them, Grace said. Then I will reimburse him. No, Tunde replied. Use your own resources for repair that reaches somebody who needs it. Sade looked at her solicitor. The original Widows program remained active under a new name that did not include Sade. She volunteered to speak to the auditors, but declined an invitation to attend the relaunch. I would become the story again, she told Halima. The women are the story. Her solicitor smiled. Write that down before you forget it. One incident in the 4th month tested whether Sade had learned procedure or merely learned to appear patient. A woman named Mrs. Ajayi arrived during visiting hours and found a bruise on her father's forearm. She entered Ward B shouting that the center had beaten him. Her voice drew residents from their beds and sent one confused woman towards the corridor. Sade was nearest the door. 10 minutes later, she returned and closed it properly. At counseling, Dr. Falade asked what had made Mama Raliat throw the bowl. She did not want to bathe. Why? She was being difficult. That describes your judgment, not her reason. Sade thought about it. Mama Raliat had kept one hand over the neckline of her gown. She had asked twice whether a male orderly was outside. She was embarrassed, Saad said, possibly afraid. Sade remembered ordering staff into bedrooms while she changed outfits because she considered their discomfort irrelevant. The thought stayed with her. On her next shift, she asked Auntie Rose whether Mama Raliat could choose the time of her bath and have the washroom door checked before entering. Her old instinct returned at once. Control the scene, remove the embarrassing person, protect the institution's image. She could almost hear herself saying, Do you know where you are? Instead, she closed the fire door to reduce noise in the ward and asked Auntie Rose to remain with the residents. Then she approached Mrs. Ajayi without touching her. Ma, I can see that you are angry. Let us bring the nurse and check your father before we discuss anything else. I do not need your smooth talk. Who injured him? I do not know. We need to find out. That answer did not calm the woman, but it did not provoke her further. I want her to understand that she cannot assault somebody and walk back into a comfortable life. Good. I want a legal record. Also good. I want her away from you. She is already away. Tundi leaned forward. Mama, she could have damaged your sight. Yes. She could have triggered a stroke. Yes. And you are speaking as if somebody broke a plate. Grace turned to him. I am speaking carefully because you are not. He looked away. I do not want revenge wearing the clothes of justice, she said. Make the report. Preserve the evidence. Let her obtain her own lawyer. Let professionals decide what the law requires. The nurse examined the bruise, checked the medication chart, and contacted the supervising clinician. Incident records showed that Mr. Ajayi had knocked his arm against a bed rail during a supervised transfer the previous evening. Staff had documented it, applied a cold compress, and called the family number on file. The call had gone unanswered. Mrs. Ajayi listened, then demanded to see the record. Matron Agnes brought her into the office, explained what could be shared, and reviewed the transfer procedure with her. She also acknowledged that staff should have tried the secondary contact after the first call failed. The complaint did not end with the family being declared wrong. The center updated its notification protocol, the older woman agreed. Mama Ralliot washed without throwing anything. Nobody called it a breakthrough. Auntie Rose only said, "Now carry the linen basket." In Lekki, Grace remained with Tunde while completing follow-up appointments. She had recovered from the chemical irritation, though sunlight still made her eyes water. Her blood pressure medication was adjusted, and Tunde arranged a driver for every appointment, despite Grace's repeated claim that public buses had not yet killed her. "You have tested that theory enough," he told her. She spent mornings reading in the garden, and afternoons asking questions about the senior support pilot. The Lagos Senior Support Network assigned a program director, 2 social workers, and a nurse to the first outreach team. Afterwards, Matron Agnes asked Sade what she had wanted to do when the shouting began. "Send her outside," Sade admitted. "Why did you not?" "Because the noise was not the main problem." What was? Whether her father was safe, whether the bruise had been recorded, and whether the family had been informed. Matron Agnes nodded. "Image is often the enemy of investigation. Remember that." Sade did. That same month, Veronica sent a message through a mutual acquaintance. The Ikoyi Women's Social Club was preparing a panel on redemption and public scandal. They wanted Sad to appear, apologize again on camera, and speak about her journey from luxury to service. The appearance would be filmed, sponsored, and widely promoted. Halima spoke. "My client is willing to fund replacement first aid and eye wash supplies for the estate clinic, subject to proper invoicing, and to undertake supervised service through an approved senior care organization." The mediator turned to Grace. "Would that address part of what you need?" "Part," Grace said. "She should also complete counseling focused on anger, prejudice, and use of domestic power. Workers in her home should have a confidential channel to report mistreatment, and she should not use any of this for publicity." Sade's fingers tightened around her pen. "No cameras," Grace added. "No foundation named after her. No speech after 2 weeks." The mediator almost smiled. For 10 minutes, Sade imagined the stage. Good lighting, controlled questions, a chance to replace the video at the gate with a better image. Then she read the proposed title, "Fallon Social Finds Her Humanity." She declined. Her response contained one sentence: "The residents of the care center are not scenery for my reputation repair." Veronica did not answer. Bode's new position changed his household more quietly. His mother's rent was paid on time. His sister remained at university and received a second-hand laptop rather than the new model Bode first wanted to buy. Nneka had helped him prepare a budget. "You will not become poor by buying one laptop," Musa told him. "No," Bode said. Their purpose was simple: identify older residents living alone, assess urgent needs, and connect them to existing services before promising anything new. Bode began training at 8 each morning. The first aid instructor made him repeat blood pressure procedure until he stopped tightening the cuff too loosely. The safeguarding course taught him how to record facts without guessing motives, how to obtain consent, and when to escalate suspected neglect. Computer lessons were harder. He typed with 2 fingers and once deleted half a report. "I have destroyed the whole elderly program," he told the trainer. "You deleted 1 paragraph." It was a strong paragraph. The trainer restored it from autosave. "I will become poor by believing every salary increase is a festival." He continued living in his single room while saving for a deposit on a small flat. On weekends, he visited his mother and practiced case interviews with her until she became tired of being asked whether she consented to everything. "Consent to eat this soup," she told him one Sunday. "Consent quickly before it becomes cold." The work did not transform him into a different class of human being. It gave him training, stability, and room to make plans. In early August, 5.5 months after the incident, the Grace Adeyemi Center for Elder Dignity passed its final safety inspection. Separately, Tunde would establish a private trust named for his mother. The trust would lease and renovate a building for long-term elderly support, but it would not open until registration, staffing, safeguarding, and medical partnerships were complete. The board approved an initial commitment of 200 million naira, released in stages under independent oversight. Bode was offered a place in the pilot program as a paid community outreach assistant after completing first aid, safeguarding, and basic case record training. His salary increased, but he did not become a director overnight. When Tunde explained the offer, Bode stared at the letter. "Sir, I have never worked in an office. You will spend more time in communities than in an office." The building contained a daytime clinic room, counseling offices, a meal hall, temporary respite rooms, and a legal aid desk operated through partner organizations. It was not a hospital and did not pretend to be one. The center's charter specified what it could provide, what required referral, and how complaints would be handled. Tunde wanted the opening ceremony on his mother's birthday. Grace refused. "My birthday has survived without ribbon for 62 years. They chose a Friday morning instead. The guest list included public health representatives, pension advocates, trade unions, community leaders, and residents who had helped design the program. Society photographers were permitted, but no beneficiary could be photographed without informed consent. Grace wore deep purple lace. Tunde wore a dark brown agbada. During his first supervised visit, Bode met an 80-year-old retired tailor named Mr. Owolabi, living in one room behind a mechanic's workshop. The old man needed cataract assessment and had not collected his pension in 5 months because his biometric record had failed. Bode wanted to hand him cash. The social worker stopped him. "Cash solves tonight," she said. "Our job is also to solve the broken process." They arranged food support, a clinic appointment, and assistance at the pension office. Bode wrote the report himself. It took him 2 hours. Tunde read it that evening. "You used the phrase 'the old man was very, very helpless,'" he said. "He was, sir. Write what you observed. Let the facts show the condition." Bode wore a navy suit because Naneko insisted coordinators must look serious on launch day. "You see," Musa whispered, "the tie has returned." Bode adjusted it. "After today, it is going back into prison." At the podium, Tunde kept his speech short. "This center exists because an ordinary request for water exposed a failure in my own home," he said. "The purpose is not to turn one family's shame into public praise. It is to reduce the number of older people who must depend on luck before someone notices they need help." He thanked the partner organizations, staff, auditors, and community advisors by name. Then he asked Grace to cut the ribbon. Tunde requested a minimum 6-month separation, financial disclosure regarding Sade's charity, and no direct contact except through agreed channels. Saad requested access to personal belongings and sufficient funds for legal and basic living expenses. Each side adjusted details over 4 hours. The final restorative agreement was voluntary, witnessed by both legal teams and separate from any decision about criminal reporting. It required 6 months of supervised service at the Lagos State Senior Care Center in Yaba, 80 hours each month, 12 counseling sessions, payment for specific medical and safety supplies, a written apology to Bode and the household staff, and participation in an independent audit of her charity. Grace agreed not to pursue a private complaint while Sade complied, though the agreement made clear that public authorities remained free to act on information already available. She handed the scissors to Mr. Owolabi, the retired tailor from Bode's first outreach visit. "You are the one who complained that the entrance was too narrow," she said. "You should open it." Mr. Owolabi laughed and cut the ribbon while holding his walking stick under one arm. The applause that followed belonged to more than one person. After the ceremony, Grace found Bode checking bottled water beneath the meal canopy. "You have done well," she said. "I have made 3 mistakes since morning, Mama." "Only 3? Then you are becoming proud," he laughed. Tunde joined them. "Naneka says his case records are now the cleanest on the team." Bode shook his head. Bode revised it too. Mr. Owolabi had eaten once in 2 days, could not read his medication labels, and required assistance to walk beyond the compound. "That is stronger," Tunde said. Bode nodded. "Less pity, more evidence." "Exactly." The program began with 17 cases, not hundreds. The trust's proposed center remained a building plan, a lease negotiation, and a stack of compliance documents. Grace approved of the slowness. If you build too fast, she told Tunde, you will spend money correcting what patience could have prevented. At the end of Sade's third week, the independent audit of her charity reached preliminary findings. The Widows program had made genuine donations, but Sade had charged styling, photography, and event decor to the same account. Sir, do not destroy me with public praise. Grace looked across the courtyard at older men and women eating, arguing about chairs and calling staff by the wrong names. This is better than a statue, she said. No camera was close enough to hear her. The center opened while Sade still had 3 weeks left in her placement. She saw the launch on the evening news from Pa Joseph's parlor. Tunde appeared for 20 seconds, Grace for less. Bode stood behind Mr. Owolabi as the old tailor cut the ribbon. The presenter called it a major private intervention for vulnerable senior citizens in Lagos. Sade knew enough by then to distrust the word major. Decide whether trust can exist again after you have both had time to think. He nodded, though no decision felt possible. That afternoon, Mr. Chuka Nwosu arrived with a legal pad rather than a stack of prepared separation papers. He listened to Grace, read Bode's incident report, and called Nurse Kemi with Tunde's permission. This is potentially an assault matter, he said. The medical record and witness statements should be preserved. But we should not pretend I can arrive at Sade's father's house and sentence her to work in a care home. I cannot. Grace gave Tunde a look. He ignored it. Chuka continued. Shai must receive independent advice. She wondered whether the kitchen had labeled food correctly, whether the clinic room had a working sharp spin, and whether somebody had checked the slope beside the side entrance after the rain. Those were smaller questions. They mattered more. Femi sat beside her marking examination scripts. You are not attending? He asked. No. Were you invited? The mediator asked whether I wanted to request permission, and I did not request it. Femi looked at the television. Why? Because arriving there would make people turn their cameras from the center to me. He placed a tick beside a student's calculation. That is a sensible answer. Sade glanced at him. The expenses were not stolen into a private bank account. They were still improper. Her solicitor brought the report to Surulere. You must reimburse these costs personally, Halima said. The trustees are also asking you to resign from financial control. How much? 1,840,000 naira. Sade stared at the figure. A month earlier, she would have spent nearly that amount on a party without examining the invoices. Now she had no access to the company accounts and only limited personal savings after legal fees. I cannot pay it at once. Then propose a schedule. What happens to the foundation? It may continue under a new board. Your name is not the work. Then tomorrow the center will still own pillowcases. Sadie opened the locker and found 2 spoons, a cup, a packet of sugar, and one of Matron Agnes's pens beneath the linen. Papa Del pointed at the pen. That one walked inside by itself. Say laughed and returned everything except the sugar, which his dietary plan permitted him to keep in limited quantity. In the first month, she would have called him a thief. In the 6th, she asked the nurse whether the hoarding had increased, and whether it might signal anxiety or confusion. The nurse added the observation to his care review. That was the difference between judgment and attention. One closed a door. The other checked what was behind it. There was no miracle in the signing. Saad read every page. Her lawyer explained the consequences. She signed because the alternative was not merely prosecution or divorce. It was returning to her father's house with nothing required of her except shame. Work, at least, offered a direction. The following Monday, at 6:45 in the morning, Sade stood inside the rusted gate of the Lagos State Senior Care Center. The facility occupied an old brick compound in Yaba, with peeling yellow paint, high windows, and 2 mango trees that dropped leaves faster than the groundsman could sweep them. The corridor smelled of carbolic soap, tea, and menthol ointment. Sade wore a green cotton work shirt, loose grey trousers, black rubber shoes, and a white hairnet. The sun over Lekki had turned the road white with heat, when Sade Adeyemi emptied a bucket of dirty wash water over the elderly woman outside her gate. The woman had asked for 1 cup of clean water. Nothing more. She needed it to swallow the blood pressure tablet pinched between 2 fingers, but Sade saw the faded wrapper, the dusty slippers, and the small black nylon bag, and decided she was looking at a beggar. Grey foam ran through the woman's silver hair. The prescription paper she had been holding folded against her chest and bled blue ink across her blouse. She did not curse Sade. She covered her eyes with both hands and tried to breathe. The sentence hurt because it was true. Sade sold 2 designer handbags and a set of unused gold earrings. She did not announce it. She sent the first repayment through her solicitor and signed her resignation from the charity's finance committee. On the 4th Thursday of her placement, Chief Mrs. Veronica arrived at the care center. 2 luxury vans followed her Bentley through the gate. 4 members of the Ikoyi Women's Social Club stepped out in matching gold lace. A television crew came behind them carrying a light panel and 2 cameras. Matron Agnes met them in the courtyard. "We were informed of a donation," she said, "not a broadcast. I still become impatient when people move slowly. The difference is that I no longer believe those preferences are evidence that I am better than anybody." "Then the work is not to become another person," the counselor said. "It is to stop giving your worst instincts authority." Sade completed the final session without requesting a letter saying she was cured. Dr. Falade would not have written one. Change had no discharge certificate. At the care center, Mama Bisi's health remained stable after her hospital visit. She resumed commenting on footsteps and food portions. On Sad's final Wednesday, she called her to bed 14. "I have something for you. I do not know how to write reports like educated people. You wrote the gate incident accurately under pressure. The rest can be taught." Bode read the letter again. "What if I fail the training? Then you remain employed in security while you try again." Bode folded the paper along its existing crease. "I will not fail." Tunda smiled. "That answer sounds more like you." In Surulere, the first week moved slowly. Sadie discovered that disgrace did not arrive as one dramatic fall. It came in small refusals. The salon that once sent stylists to her home asked for payment before confirming an appointment. Veronica did not answer 2 calls. From beneath her pillow, Mama Bisi produced a narrow strip of blue cotton, braided by hand and knotted at one end. "What is it?" Sada asked. "A bookmark. A blind woman can still braid if people stop shouting instructions into her ear." Sade ran the cloth between her fingers. The braid was uneven in 2 places. "Thank you, Mama. Put it in a book you actually read." "I will, and do not begin crying. Tears make people think a gift is a funeral." Sade laughed, though her eyes had filled. Mama Bisi reached out until she found Sadie's wrist. "When you first came, your hand was always tight." Sade looked down. "My dear matron," Veronica replied, smiling towards the nearest camera, "publicity encourages others to give. Publicity also disturbs residents during rest period." The cameraman lowered his equipment slightly. Sade was scrubbing the corridor threshold on her knees. She heard Veronica before she saw her. The gold lace stopped beside the bucket. Veronica removed her sunglasses. "Sade Adeyemi." Sade stood, keeping the wet brush in her hand. "Good morning, Chief Mrs." the other women whispered. One camera tilted towards Sade. Veronica's face arranged itself into sympathy. "My dear, look at you. Life can turn a person upside down in 1 week." 4 weeks, Sade said. Yes, such a pity." Her fingers were open around the blue braid. "I was angry. You were afraid. Of what?" "Of being ordinary." The answer settled between them. Mama Bisi released her. "Ordinary people are the ones who bring water." On the final Friday in August, rain threatened but did not fall. Sade reported at 6:45, signed the attendance register, and worked the complete shift. She cleaned breakfast tables, helped label linen, accompanied Mama Raliat to the garden, and completed her placement notes. At 4 o'clock, Matron Agnes called her into the administrative office. Auntie Rose sat by the filing cabinet. Dr. Falade had sent her final compliance note. The center's placement supervisor had verified 480 hours. Her fingernails had been cut short the night before. She had argued about that for 10 minutes, then looked at her hands and cut them herself. Matron Agnes Okoro met her beside the administrative office. She was 62, broad-shouldered and economical with words. "You are Mrs. Adeyemi." "Yes, ma. You are here under a restorative placement. That means you are not staff, not a donor and not a guest. You work under supervision. You do not administer medication. You do not photograph residents. You do not repeat their personal stories outside this compound. Is that clear?" "Yes, ma. If a resident insults you, call a staff member. If a resident falls, do not drag them up." Matron Agnes placed a certificate on the desk. "This confirms completion of the restorative service requirement," she said. "It does not qualify you as a nurse, counselor, or professional caregiver." "I understand. You have, however, completed the center's basic support orientation and performed supervised non-clinical duties satisfactorily." Sade waited. Matron Agnes adjusted the certificate until it sat square with the edge of the table. "You were difficult in the beginning." Auntie Rose made a sound that suggested this was generous. "You asked too many questions after ignoring instructions," Matron continued. "You confused being tired with being mistreated. You expected personal growth to excuse poor mopping." Sade lowered her head. "Yes, ma. But you stayed." Veronica opened her handbag and took out 2 crisp 1,000 naira notes. "Buy yourself lunch." The old Sade would have heard only insult. The new one was not fully formed, but she heard something else too. The same public performance she had once mistaken for generosity. She looked at the notes. "I have lunch, ma. Take it. Do not be proud." Sade glanced at the television light. "Matron Agnes has a list of supplies the center needs. You can add the money to your donation." Veronica's smile thinned. "I am giving it to you personally. I cannot accept personal tips during placement." One of the social club women laughed under her breath. Veronica moved closer. "You began observing residents instead of performing goodness at them. When you made errors, you recorded them. That matters." She pushed the certificate across. "The center has an opening for a trainee resident support assistant. It pays 85,000 naira a month, includes meals on shift and requires weekend rotation. Employment would be subject to references, background checks and completion of an accredited caregiver course within 6 months." Sade stared at her. "This is not part of the agreement." "No. You are offering me work? I am offering you an interview. Do not promote yourself before you sit down." Auntie Rose smiled. Sade took the application form with the certificate. "I would like to apply." He had converted fear into lists. Grace watched him end the 3rd call. "Come and sit. I need to send the authority an explanation. They have received one. Your mother is alive. Sit." He sat beside her, still holding the phone. "I want to file a police report," he said. "You should document what happened. I want charges." Grace looked towards the hibiscus hedge. Her wrapper from the previous day had been rinsed separately and hung in the sun. The bleach had left pale patches across the green fabric. "What result do you want?" she asked. "Accountability. That is a large word. Describe it. Then submit it on Monday like every other applicant." "Yes, ma." She left the office and walked through Ward B one last time as a placement worker. Papa Dele complained that nobody had returned his 4 pillowcases. Mama Raliat told her the afternoon soup lacked pepper. Mama Bisi held up her empty cup and said, "Do not become too employed to see water." Sade filled it, waited until she drank, and returned the cup to the correct shelf. At the main gate, Auntie Rose caught up with her. "You forgot your food container." She handed over the scratched plastic bowl Femi had packed each morning. Sade took it. "Thank you for teaching me. I taught you cleaning procedures. After everything, you still want to instruct me?" No. Sade placed the brush in the bucket. "I am telling you the center's rule." Matron Agnes stepped between the camera and the ward entrance. "The donation office is inside the administrative block. Cameras remain outside unless residents and management give written consent." Veronica held the notes a moment longer, then returned them to her bag. "We came here to help. Then helping should survive without the lens," Matron Agnes said. The television crew switched off the light. Veronica walked towards the office with the rigid posture of somebody who had been denied the scene she came to purchase. Sade knelt again and picked up the brush. The residents did the remaining one. They embraced briefly. Sade boarded a bus to Surulere with the certificate inside a brown envelope and the blue bookmark in her handbag. Pa Joseph was on the veranda when she arrived. He wore reading glasses and was repairing the strap of an old sandal. "I finished," Sade said. He looked at the envelope. "All the hours. 480. And what happens Monday? I submit a job application. At the same place." "Yes." He removed his glasses. "Do you want the work? Or do you want people to know you want the work?" Sade sat on the step beside him. "I want the work. If you do not know, ask." Sade nodded. Matron Agnes handed her a laminated orientation card. "Today you clean Ward B with Auntie Rose. She has worked here for 16 years. You will follow her instructions." Auntie Rose was a 54-year-old care assistant with a gap between her front teeth and no interest in Sade's former status. "Take that mop," she said. "Not the red one. Red is for bathrooms." Sade picked up the blue-handled mop. "Where are the gloves?" "On the shelf in front of you. These are thin. They are gloves, not bodyguards." The first hour stripped away Sade's assumptions about what cleaning involved. "I am not sure I will be good enough for it." "Good." She frowned. "Good? People who are too sure of themselves are difficult to train." He went back to the sandal. After a moment, he handed it to her. "Hold this side." They repaired the strap together. The restorative agreement required a final meeting. It took place on the first Tuesday after the 6-month mark, a few days after Sade completed her placement. This time, Sade entered the Grace Adeyemi Center through the public gate on foot. She wore a plain blue cotton dress and flat sandals. The receptionist asked her name, checked the appointment list, and issued a visitor badge. Nobody rushed to announce her. Auntie Rose had watched from the ward doorway. "You spoke well," she said. Sade waited for more. "There is soap behind your left knee." That was all. Later, Mama Bisi asked who had visited. "Some women from a social club," Sade said. "Did they bring anything useful?" "Matron says they paid for 2 new blood pressure monitors and adult diapers." Then their deal was not completely useless. Sade laughed before she could stop herself. The sound surprised her. That evening, the television station aired a short segment about the center's supply needs. Sade appeared for less than 3 seconds in the background, carrying a bucket. Her name was not mentioned. She watched it with Pa Joseph. She sat in the waiting area until Bode came downstairs. He wore a pale blue shirt and carried a tablet computer beneath one arm. The navy suit from the opening ceremony had returned to its cupboard. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning, Bode." She stood. For a second, both remembered the gate at number 14. Bode in a security uniform, Sade deciding whether he would keep his salary. "I received your letter," he said. "I did not expect an answer. I know." Sade folded her hands. "I threatened your job because you helped somebody I wanted removed. I knew you had family responsibilities, and I used that knowledge to frighten you. I am sorry." Bode considered her words before replying. A charity trustee requested receipts for 3 publicity expenses Sade had approved without reading. Her supplementary company card failed at a pharmacy when she tried to buy imported skin cream. At home, Pa Joseph gave her a market list and 6,000 naira. "Buy rice, tomatoes, pepper, onions, and fish," he said. Sade looked at the note. "This is not enough. It was enough for your brother yesterday. The fish alone, then negotiate." She went to a Gouda market wearing sunglasses and a scarf. 2 traders recognized her from the video. One whispered. The other did not bother whispering. "That is the Lekki woman." Sade almost turned back. Then she saw Pa Joseph's list in her hand and continued. "What hurt me was not only the threat. It was that you believed my uniform meant my conscience belonged to you." Sade nodded. "I did. It did not. No." He adjusted the tablet beneath his arm. "I forgive you, Ma, but I am glad I did not obey you. So am I." Bode opened the inner door. "Mama Grace and Oga Tunde are upstairs." He did not call her Madame. The meeting room overlooked the center's garden. Grace sat near the window with her Bible. Tunde stood beside a shelf of program reports. Chuka, Halima and the mediator had already reviewed the compliance documents and left the family portion of the meeting private. You were on television, he said. Barely. Good. Television has seen enough of you. Femi brought out plates of yam and egg stew. Said collected hers from the kitchen and washed all 3 plates afterwards without being told. Pa Joseph noticed. He did not praise her, but the next morning he added 1 extra piece of fish to her food flask. The 5th week brought rain. It started before dawn and flooded the shallow gutter outside the care center. Sadie arrived with the bottom of her trousers wet from the bus stop. 6 months earlier, she would have considered that reason enough to cancel an appointment. Now she changed into spare uniform trousers from the linen cupboard and reported to Ward B. Sadie entered and closed the door behind her. Grace's eyesight had fully recovered. Her green wrapper from the day of the incident had been repaired, but the pale bleach marks remained. She wore it that morning deliberately, not to shame Sade, but because damaged cloth did not become useless. Sad saw it and stopped. Mama, come and sit. Sad remained standing for a moment, then sat in the chair opposite her. She did not kneel. I completed the hours, the counseling, and the reimbursement schedule, she said. The center offered me an interview for a trainee support position. I have not been hired yet. Grace smiled. Matatron Agnes does not hire anybody out of emotion. No, Mama. Ward B had 32 beds, each with its own locker, water cup, and small territory of personal possessions. Dust collected beneath bed frames. Disinfectant had to be mixed in measured proportions, not poured until the smell became strong. Wet floors required warning signs. Mops used near toilets could not cross into sleeping areas. Auntie Rose corrected her 5 times before 7:30. Do not splash water under that bed. Mama BC's slippers are there. Ring her first. Are you trying to swim? Move the chair before you mop around it. Dirt does not respect expensive education. Sade's lower back began aching before breakfast. At 9:20, she was cleaning beside bed 14 when a blind resident lifted an empty plastic cup. She does not appear to possess that weakness. Tunde almost smiled. Sade took a folded sheet from her handbag. I wrote an apology, but I do not want to read a speech at you. I came to say something plainly. Grace waited. The water I poured on you did not come from fear of crime. It came from contempt. I had spent years turning my shame about where I came from into disgust. For people who reminded me of it, you happened to be standing where I had power. Her hands stayed open on her lap. I am sorry for the pain, the risk to your health, and the humiliation. I know completing a program does not make the event disappear. Mama BC was unusually quiet. The old woman normally identified people by the sound of their steps and commented on whatever they were carrying. That morning she did not complain when Sade placed breakfast on the bedside table. Mama, your tea is here. No answer. Sade touched the back of her hand. The skin was warm. Mama BC's mouth tilted slightly on one side when she tried to speak. Sade remembered the orientation card clipped behind her name badge. Do not lift. Do not give food or drink. Call clinical staff immediately. She pressed the ward bell and called Auntie Rose. The nurse arrived within a minute, checked Mama BC, and activated the center's emergency protocol. I am not asking to return to Tunde's house or to be restored to my old position. I wanted you to hear that from me without an audience. Grace looked at her for a long time. I heard you. Sadie's eyes filled, but she did not cover her face. I forgave you before you began the work, Grace said. The work was not the price of forgiveness. It was the evidence that you intended to become safer for other people. Sade nodded. Grace reached across and took her hand. Do not spend the rest of your life worshipping your worst day. Guilt that produces no service is another form of selfishness. Tunda sat in the remaining chair. If Mama Grace is open to restorative mediation, Sade may enter a voluntary agreement that includes service, counseling, restitution, and a written admission. That agreement would not erase any criminal process. It would sit beside it. And if she refuses, Tunda asked, then the family separation continues, and Mama Grace decides whether to support a formal complaint. The police and prosecutors make their own decisions from there. Grace nodded. That is fair. Tunde did not like how slow fairness sounded. Still, he agreed. The next morning he took Grace to the estate clinic. Her eyes were inflamed but healing. Her blood pressure had stabilized under observation and medication. The doctor referred her to an ophthalmologist and adjusted her follow-up schedule. Our legal separation order is complete, he said. The property and support terms remain as agreed. I will not be returning to the marriage. Said met his gaze. I understand. I do not want hostility between us. Neither do I. He handed her a folder containing the final documents and confirmation that the last charity reimbursement payment had cleared. Said opened it, checked the pages and closed it again. You and Mama owe me nothing, she said. The support period will help while I train, but I intend to live from my own work. Tunde nodded. That is your choice. It was not reconciliation. It was something less dramatic and more durable, an ending without cruelty. By the time the ambulance left, the ward had gone quiet. Sadid stood beside the untouched tea. Was it a stroke? She asked. We do not diagnose from the corridor, Auntie Rose said. You noticed a change and called. That is what you were supposed to do. For the rest of the shift, Sade kept looking at bed 14. Mama Bisi returned 4 days later after treatment for a transient ischemic attack. Her speech was clear again. She reached for Sadie's hand when she heard her voice. They said you raised an alarm. I noticed your mouth. You are using your eyes better these days. Saad sat beside her. I am trying. Mama Bisi squeezed her fingers. Grace stood and embraced Sadie. The hug lasted only a few seconds. When they separated, Grace adjusted one fold of Sadie's dress where it had caught beneath her handbag strap. You still do not arrange your shoulder properly, she said. Sad laughed through tears. Mama, you saw me only twice before all this. A mother does not need many opportunities to find fault. They went downstairs together. In the courtyard, the lunch team was serving rice and stew. Mr. Owolabi argued that his portion of fish was smaller than the portion beside him. Bode was checking intake forms with Naneka. A nurse pushed an elderly woman beneath the shade after asking where she wished to sit. Said watched for a moment. My child, the woman called. Who is near me? Said kept her hands on the mop. Auntie Rose was helping another resident across the ward. My child, the woman called again. Please, I need warm water. The words entered Sadie's body before her mind caught up. She saw the curb, the green wrapper, the tablet pinched between Grace's fingers, the grey bucket near the tap. Her grip loosened. The mop handle struck the floor. Auntie Rose looked over. What happened? Nothing, then pick it up. Said set the mop against the wall and went to the water station. She checked the resident's name card. Mama Bisi Adebayo, 74, visually impaired, fluid as tolerated. Then she signed out at reception and left through the public gate. At the bus stop on Admiralty Way, 6 people waited beneath a shelter that kept out neither sun nor rain. Said stood beside a woman selling bottled water from a blue cooler. Her bus was visible in traffic when an elderly man in a brown cap approached the shelter, breathing through his mouth. He asked the water seller the price of a bottle, searched his pockets and found only a crumpled prescription slip. I will come back, he said. The seller had already turned to another customer. Said bought 1 bottle and handed it to him. The man looked at her carefully. My daughter, I do not have money now. I started making other people carry the shame for me. That answer stayed in the room. The counselor did not praise it. She asked what repair would look like with people who had worked under Sade. Under the restorative agreement, Sade wrote individual letters to Bode. Sunday, James, the former driver she had dismissed over sparkling water, and the housekeeper whose surname she had finally obtained from payroll records. Eno Williams. She did not ask any of them to forgive her. Each letter named a specific action and a specific harm. To Bode, she wrote that threatening his livelihood was an abuse of the unequal power between them. To Eno, she acknowledged reading private messages on her phone and deducting pay for a broken plate without investigation. I heard you. He opened the bottle with difficulty. Sade loosened the cap and gave it back. He swallowed 2 tablets, drank again and sat on the bench. Her bus pulled away from the curb. Said watched it go. Was that not your bus? The man asked. Yes, you will be late. There will be another one. She waited until his breathing settled and he confirmed that his son was coming to collect him. Then she boarded the next bus, holding the scratched food container on her lap and the blue bookmark inside her bag. That evening, Grace stood with Tunde on the upper balcony of the center. Below them, the courtyard lights came on one by one. At the tomato stall, she offered the first price asked. The seller laughed. Madam, you have money to pour away, but not sense to price food? Said's face burned. She wanted to insult the woman. The old response rose easily, already shaped. She swallowed it. How much for the basket if I take onions too? She asked. The seller looked disappointed at the absence of a fight. By the time Sade returned home, she had exceeded the budget by 800 naira and bought poor quality fish. Pa Joseph said nothing. He cleaned the fish himself and set aside the damaged pieces for stew. The silence was instructional. 8 days after the incident, Sade attended a meeting at a neutral mediation center in Yaba with her own solicitor, Barrister Halima Bello. Staff cleared dinner plates. Bode walked beside Mr. Owolabi, listening to a complaint about the new walking ramp. You will return to Ogun next week, Tunde said. I have a house there, you remember? I remember. I also remember how you traveled last time. This time, I will enter the car you send. With Sunday. Yes, and Mrs. Akinwal will confirm when you arrive. Grace turned to him. Do you want to attach a tracking device to my wrapper? I considered it. She laughed and rested her arms on the railing. On a table below, a staff member placed cups of water beside the evening medicine register. One cup remained after the others had been taken. To the former driver, she enclosed the salary withheld when he was dismissed, and the cost of 1 month's transport while he searched for work. Bode received his letter at the senior support office. He read it once and placed it in a drawer. Tunde, who happened to be reviewing outreach budgets across the desk, asked, Are you going to reply? Not today, sir. You do not have to reply at all. I know, Bode closed the drawer. But one day I may tell her that apology is better when it arrives without asking for promotion in the receiver's heart. Tunde looked at him. That sentence will destroy your report-writing progress. Bode grinned. Bode noticed it, checked the list, and carried it to an old woman seated near the garden wall. Grace watched him put the cup into her hands. How much does water cost? She asked. Tunde followed her gaze. Almost nothing. Grace shook her head. Only before somebody needs it. Below them, the old woman drank. Bode waited, collected the empty cup, and carried it back inside. She filled a clean cup with warm water and carried it to the bed. Here, Ma. Mama Bisi reached in the wrong direction. Saad guided the cup into both hands. Thank you, my daughter. Sade remained standing beside her. Mama Bisi drank, wiped her mouth with the back of one hand and held out the cup. You can go. The floor will not clean itself because an old woman said thank you. Said took the cup. She made it 3 steps before tears blurred the aisle. She went into the supply room, shut the door, and pressed both hands against a shelf of folded towels. No music played. Nobody came to explain the lesson. I kept it out of the case file. The pilot program grew from 17 cases to 43 by the end of the 2nd month. The team learned to say no when requests fell outside its mandate. They also learned that many emergencies began with ordinary failures. A pension form nobody could read, a clinic too far from a bus route, adult children assuming a neighbor was checking in. Grace joined the advisory committee, but she refused the title of chairwoman. I have classroom experience, not social work training, she said. Let the professionals lead where they know more. She reviewed educational materials for clarity and insisted every hotline notice be printed in large type. During her last counseling sessions, Dr. Falaid asked Sade to imagine returning to wealth. What would change if you received 10 million naira tomorrow? I would pay the rest of the charity reimbursement. And after that, Said considered the question. I would want a comfortable flat. Comfort is not a crime. I know, do you? Seiso smiled without humor. Some days I think punishment is supposed to make me dislike every nice thing I once enjoyed. Then I remember the bucket did not come from a nice thing. It came from my decision. Dr. Fallard wrote something. I still like good clothes, Sade continued. I still dislike crowded buses.